We're here with Jonathan Galassi, whose new book is Left-Handed, a poetry collection. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan, you're also the president of a top 8 publishing company, Farrar, Straus and Giroux. And I have to ask, how do you find time to write?
Well, I write very slowly, and when in the interstices between other things, just the way many people do. So I'm not an everyday writer, but I'm a constant writer in the sense of that something is always bubbling around somewhere.
What attracted you to poetry instead of another form?
Well, poetry was really an early love of mine. In high school, I got very interested in it, and it just has always held me as very intense form of communication, very boiled down, very very. You can say things in poetry in a more direct way than you can in other things. So I've written a novel now too. So I'm trying that. I'm trying a more relaxed form now too.
Are you going to submit that to FSG?
No, it'll be published next by my publisher, Knopf.
Okay. As a leading publisher yourself, do you feel performance anxiety? I mean, do you think in the back of your head, anything I write has to be really, really good?
Well, I think writers feel that anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel any different than any other writer. T.S. Eliot once said, Bob Giroux asked him once, who was his friend and his publisher and editor, do you think most publishers are failed writers? And T.S. Eliot had been a publisher too, of course. And he said, probably, but then again, so are most writers.
Left-Handed has been widely praised and, among other things, called heartbreaking. What are you looking to communicate when you write? Something about the human condition? Something about contemporary life?
Well, I think I've written 3 books of poems. I think they're all about trying to make sense of my relationship to the world. And I think that as I progressed, as I aged, I became more and more open to the truth and simpler in some ways in my writing, less. And my book is about a big change that happened in my life, and I think it's the most naked thing I've ever written.
What was that change, if I may ask?
I came out as a gay man, and that was the change. So
yeah, and
I fell in love with a young man in my 50s after having been married for over 30 years.
And you trace that transformation in the poems?
This book is about that change, about that crisis.
You're also a famous translator of classic works of Italian poetry, in many cases introducing authors who are relatively unknown to the American audience. What inspired you to take on that kind of work?
It's related to my love of poetry. I learned Italian after college. I went to Italy, and my grandfather was Italian, and I got very excited about Italy and Italian. Like everyone else, I read Dante, and I got very interested in contemporary Italian poetry. And it was a way of doing poetry and a way of learning about a culture that I wanted to absorb into myself.
Italian, like other Romance languages, is much easier to rhyme in than in English. The rhythms are different. Does doing Italian translations influence your English poetry at all?
It certainly did. It certainly has influenced. It's true what you say, that in some ways rhymes are unavoidable in Italian. That's not true for us. I do use rhymes in my work, and perhaps my experience with Italian influenced that, but I was always drawn to rhymes. But they're not constant. They're something occasional for me.
You've written about your optimism for publishing today, a time when many people see only dire things ahead for book publishing. Tell me a little bit about why you'd be optimistic.
Well, here I am at the Miami Book Fair, and this place is crawling with writers and people who are dying to read their books, listen to them, buy their books. So I think the literary culture is very alive, and we're right in the middle of it right now. So I think I'm optimistic about publishing because people are writing, great books are being written, and many people still want to read them. I think that part of our culture is not going to go away. Other things are standing beside it. Sometimes they get more of the limelight than books used to be more at the center of culture than they are. But there's still a pillar of it, very essential, and that's never going to change.
Unfortunately, I have to ask that, given the way that the digital revolution has changed the metrics of publishing, will you be able to continue to make money publishing traditional?
So far, we're doing fine.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that's the digital revolution has been doing that's worrisome is that it's devaluing intellectual property, I think. And that is something we have to come to terms with. Authors need to be compensated for what they do. Driving the price of books down might not be such a culturally advantageous thing to do.
But it's advantageous to Amazon.
It's advantageous to consumers in the short run. Amazon is they're not really interested in what they're selling. They're interested in selling whatever there is at as low a price as possible, right, and killing the competition.
Right.
So I think that we have to educate book consumers, book readers, that they need to pay for authors' books, or there won't be books to sell them.
There's some reports that independent bookstores are faring better than, well, Borders is gone, Barnes & Noble is not so well, but Books and Books here in Miami seems to be doing well. Do you see that from your end, that independents?
There's no question that independents have picked up a lot of the business that the chains have, some of the business that the chains have lost, but they're still a very minor part of our business. They're not going to make up the difference. If Barnes & Noble is reduced by a large percentage, the good independent bookstores will profit from that, but not to the extent that it'll be fully replaced.
They won't be able to take up the slack.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. FSG is a storied publishing company, and it's been in the news lately as a result of history by Boris Kachka.
Hot House.
Yeah, Hot House, in which you wrote, said that you're made out to be an introverted, aloof corporate tool.
You're referring to the review I wrote of the book. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He said I was aloof 6 times in the manuscript, and I told him he had to take at least some of those out. I don't know if I'm aloof, I hope not. But I liked Boris's book very much, especially the early part, the early history of Roger and Bob, Giroux especially. I think his later part, of course I would think this, is less accurate and less understanding of what's really going on in publishing. But he's great at the mythology.
And the early big personalities.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Last question, Jonathan. You're sitting down to read poetry for pleasure. Name 3 poets that
I do for that. Read for pleasure. Robert Frost, Wallace Stevens, and Marianne Moore. All right?
All right, excellent. Jonathan Galassi, the new book is the poetry collection Left-Handed. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.